we're pleased to have with us Professor Giampaolo Conte, who is at University of Rome 3, where he is an assistant professor, I believe, and he has recently had this book published by Routledge, History of Capitalist, in English, History of Capitalist Transformation, a Critique of Liberal Capitalist Reforms. And I will let him introduce his book. I don't know if you want to say anything more about yourself, what other kinds of political activity you are engaged in, or anything that you want to tell us that would more about yourself, or
Yeah,
and then we'll get into your talk.
okay. Okay, thank
So
you
go
very
ahead.
much. Okay, thank you very much, David, and I'm very pleased to be here. And yes, just I would like to give you just a general overview of this research. Um, so this research born in the present, especially after the 2008 financial crisis, and the main idea of the book is to deconstructing the idea of a reform within the liberal and then within the neoliberal order. We are very accustomed to the idea of reforming the capitalistic system, especially, I don't know, by Rosa Luxemburg before the Great War, but we don't have a general critique of capitalistic liberal reform. So reforms is a tool aimed at shape the economy according to the rules of the profit seekers and just for the benefit of capital accumulation. So in my book, I would like to propose a theoretical model aims to define and give shape to a practice that has so far been little explicit in terms of collective consciousness. And in the book, I would like also, to reveal this false understanding, about reforms, because I remember that after the crisis, and especially after 2012, when the crisis hit very heavily the southern Europe, reforms were promoted and as a sort of tools that can, improve the benefits of the old economy, all the classes, and so on. But in reality, is just a false understanding of reforms, because we know that reforms is just a tool for the capital holders, for the benefit of the capital holders and capital accumulation, not for the middle classes or the poorest in the country. So generally, reforms was promoted as a kind of financial instrument that would benefit everyone in general. Instead, it gives the main advantage only to capital holders, namely the capitalistic class within the country and also outside the country. But we are going to see that. So we have also two kinds of reforms: the internal driven reforms that is generally promoted within the country. So we have the national profit seekers, elites that promote internal economy, just saying that we need to perform our economy, we have to avoid to overheated the economy, so we have to privatize, we have to liberalize, and we have to reduce the labor rights and so on. This is an internal driven reform process. And also we have the external one that I think that is also worse than the internal one, because externally we have the promotion of reforms with the aim of shaping peripheral or semi-peripheral economies worldwide according to the rules of the core capital accumulation in the center of the capitalistic state. So I'm talking about the main capitalistic state, but also the capitalistic states that control the economy nearby the hegemonic state. So we can see a sort of transformative process, enacted by state and capitalistic forces to integrate and adapt semi-peripheral economies to those of the hegemonic power. So we have this kind of action, in the semi-peripheral or in the semi-peripheral states. Okay, so as you can see, reforms are generally promoted into directions. So we have the first is diplomatic institutional through the direct action of the capitalistic state. This is the example how it acts, for example, the International Monetary Fund, the WTO, or the World Bank, and so on. So we have a diplomatic institutional pressure on semi-peripheral or peripheral states. Second, we have transnational links among various financial elites. So we have a sort of transnational alliance between capitalistic classes. So, and as we can see later, we have this sort of alliance because it's very profitable for the semi-peripheral elites and for the core of the capitalistic states and the elites in the core country, because both of them can benefit from reforming the economy and increasing the possibility of capital accumulation in the center and in the semi-peripheral or peripheral states. So generally, peripheral states suffer both diplomatic institutional pressure and then capitalistic elite pressure internally. So we have double pressures. And generally, they move in tandem to promote, encourage, multiply capitalistic-inspired reforms in many fields. Let's see. So the fields of public finance. We have the combination of public spending and debt payoff and so on. So through the fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is one of the main field where reforms acted heavily. So reforming the states, it means also reducing the taxes for the wealthiest in the country, and also it means increasing taxes for the middle classes and the lowers. Of course, this is normal, and especially when they put attention between the differences between direct taxes and indirect taxes. So when they increase taxes on consumptions, this is a sort of very heavy tax on the middle class. And at the same time, they reduce taxes for the profit seekers, so for the capitalistic elite. So the fiscal policy is one of the main tool for capitalistic reforms. So they use this kind of reforms in the tax system to increase the possibility of capital accumulation for the capital holders, and especially for reducing the taxes for the capital holders. Then we have monetary policy. This is the second field of action of the capitalistic liberal reforms. So generally, the currency must be fixed, strong, and integrated within the international network. It means that a country can stabilize with a deflation policy internally that can create some problems with the everyday economy, increasing what? Increasing the possibility of inflow and outflow of capital, of free movement of capital. So, of course, this is an advantage for the capital holders and a disadvantage for the people that live in the real economy, that they can suffer from having a very heavy currency to manage in everyday exchanges. And of course, monetary policy is very important also in the reform programs promoted by the capitalistic elite. Then we have institutional reforms. So, okay, we know about privatization, liberalization, that of course is very clear, the aims of this kind of action. But at the same time, we have the creation of new institutions or the editing of the oldest, but at the same time also the capability of changing the institutional structures within a state. For example, in Italy, the beginning of the 80s, there was a reform in the field of public finance that where the treasury and the central bank were splitted up. So it means that the treasury couldn't buy any more Italian treasury. So it means that the Italian government had to refer to the international market in order to sell its treasury bonds. So it means to expose to the international creditors. It means that Italy can threaten by the international investors worldwide. So this is a sort of institutional policy promoted by this kind of reformists, by this kind of neoliberal reformist process. Then we have the social one. For example, reducing the labor rights, facilitating layoffs, and so on. So reducing, labor rights, generally speaking. So, okay, I can skip over that one. So it's just a more explanation about the reforms. So generally, reforms enable international propagation of the hegemonic powers economic model with the aim of keeping capital returns high and strengthening the hegemonic state's position within the capitalistic world economy. At the same time, under the mask of necessary modernization, this is just a chimera, of course. Most of the specific economic reforms requested in the underdeveloped and also developed countries, often in exchange of market access, credit facilities, and investment inflow, were pivotal to the consequent economic dominance of a hegemonic capital state and transnational elites. I remember my personal experience in the 2012 when in the media, in the public TV shows, many businessmen, politicians said that we have to reform our pension system, we have to privatize everything, because in that way we can increase the capital inflow. So this is just a strategy. We have not enough. We have not enough money, and we have to sell our enterprises, our public enterprises, in order to allow the incoming of capitals. But of course, this is a strategy. This is a political strategy by the capital holders in Italy and outside Italy, of course. So just briefly, I refer to explain the elite theory in my book. I use Gramsci and I use Pareto and Mosca, both Italian scholars that contributed in the study of the capitalistic elite system. So we have to remember that the capitalistic elites got the power in different times, but generally when they reach the power, they want to shape the real economy according to the rules and according to the needs of capital of capital accumulation. So here you can see that in the first instance we have the rising of hegemonic group, and then when they got the power, they want to increase their capability of controlling everything, and also to influence the middle classes or the poorest in the country, that this economic strategy is the best to pursue. So a certain point, the hegemonic class influence also the external elites in the semi-peripheral and peripheral states. And in that way, they can increase the capability of controlling the market and increasing the possibility of to invest in foreign countries. Okay, let's skip over. I have 10 minutes left, so I would like to be in time. So here also
You may
my
speak
research.
a little longer if you want.
Okay, okay,
You may speak
okay.
a little longer if you want.
Okay, thank you. So also in my research, I emphasize, the connection between capitalism and liberalism, and I see a sort of misleading match. So generally, as you can see, liberalism represents the ideological framework to which a good part of these transformations refers. Although liberalism carries the principle of self-determination, in practice it must deal with the nature of a nation-state itself and its territorial expansion vocation. Uh, However, we have to clarify this kind of connection between economic liberalism and capitalism. The similarity between liberalism and capitalism is often taken for granted, although they belong to two distinct spheres. The problem is not liberalism, I think, whose ideological harmony perfectly fits into the theoretical world, but the practical need for capital accumulation. Capitalism exploits liberal ideology, often mystifying its meaning because it suits its needs better. As you can as you can see here, I use Ugo Spirito, one of the leading Italian intellectual in the interwar uh, period. Capitalism and liberalism uh, were historically the same origin and value, more or less. However, the same ideal of freedom has progressively defined itself as the idol of private liberty, that is, of the individual within the specific particular field of action, outside of the social organism in which he is defined, and therefore outside the state, which becomes the mere guardian of the boundaries of individual properties. So here you can see that, the capitalistic system exploited liberalism also to justify the private property within the system, and to say that the private no one can touch private property. So this is a natural um, value, and so on and so on. So here, just a graphic that can help you to understand my theory. So you can see the hegemonic state at the top, no? And then we can see that the hegemonic state can control the world economy thanks to the movement of capital, so inflow and outflow of capital. Of course, the hegemonic state promoted laissez-faire, WTO, and so on. So, the aim of the hegemonic state is to liberalize the international economy. So, thanks to this capability of controlling the outflow and inflow of capital, he's capable of controlling the world economy connected, no, and lies within the international market. So you can see here that generally the semi-peripheral states, and this case needs the inflow of capital, and the hegemonic state and the capitalistic class take advantage of it. So I can give you money, but in exchange you have to reform your economy. So I increase the capability of giving you a loan, but in exchange you have to privatize, you have to liberalize your economy, and also you have to enlarge the space for the political control of the profit seekers and the capital holders, and so on. So this is a strategy of power, no, by controlling the international economy and the capital, no, that can move in and move outside. So here we can skip here, and also another example to prove the elite theory, no, and also the capability of the elites, of the transnational elite, and also of the semi-peripheral elites to get more power, according to and thanks to this kind of liberal reforms. So you see in the right side, no, this is the hegemonic state where political and economic elites combine together. So they form the hegemonic class in the core capitalistic state. So they make profits within, you can see above the anti-market is, according to Fernand Braudel, the anti-market is the perfect place where you can see the exchange of profits, so where capitalists can operate perfectly. So they increase the business possibility within the anti-market, so the capitalistic part of the system. And thanks to the connection, they increase, you can see in the left side, they increase the power of the economic and elites within the semi-peripheral states. So according to that system, you see that the peripheral elites can get progressively more power thanks to this international openness to the capitals, and thanks to this connection and thanks to this business possibility, they increase also their political power. So we have the classical political elite that was threatened by the rising capitalistic elite within the semi-peripheral states, thanks to the inflow of capital, for example, loans or direct investment in these countries. So according to this theory, reforms acted in order to increase the bargaining power of the capitalistic elite, and at the same time the bargaining power of the hegemonic state that can influence more directly the semi-peripheral states, opening up their economy and increasing the capability of making profits. So okay, I'm just in time, yeah, just a couple of minutes. So just for a brief conclusion. So financial reforms within the liberal and then neoliberal orders ended up being more functional to the economic interests of the financial class than to those of the middle and lower classes. However, they act with a different timing in regard to different social and class aims, of course. So, for instance, a social class alliance among financial and mercantile elites in the capitalistic world economy arose first through the signing of the free trade agreement. So, we see at the beginning many free trade agreements. For example, after the Second World War, the GATT system, it is different than the WTO system. So, it's much more related to the manufacturing and so on. So, we have this first step related to reform external economies for the benefit of the manufacturing productions within the capitalistic state. And that's why we have reforms in the field of common goods trade, so to reduce custom duties and to increase the capability of buying foreign goods and so on. Then we have a new kind of reformism located in the financial system. And generally, these kind of reforms were guided by debt, because debt is a way to threaten external economies and also internal one. So debt reform-driven reforms in the financial sector were related and are related to taxation, debt payoff, to pursue financial stability, and debt is one of the main tools that allow financial reforms in that system. For example, I mean, this is not the problem of the United States because I mean it's much bigger state. But for example, for Italy, it's a big problem having a huge debt, a huge debt held by foreign creditors. So it means that you have to accept, the request of the international creditors. You have to. I mean, we don't want to pay off your debt, and so we are going to sell your bonds in international market, and we can put your state in danger. So you have to follow my rules, and you have to privatize, and you have to let me in within the national enterprises. Recently, I think that a couple of days ago, the Italian Prime Minister met one of the leading manager of the international financial company that held many Italian treasury bonds, and in exchange of that, this company requires to enter within state enterprises to get the 5% of many state enterprises. You can see this is a way to control. No, you are indebted, so you have to follow my rules, and you have to follow what I want to do. So this is a kind of external influence reformist process. No, so but in both cases, in the case of reforms within the material economy, and then to the financial economy, we have to accept market discipline and structural adjustment, forced by internal elites, but also by external elites. So I finished my presentation, so I'm perfectly in time. Not very Italian, of course, but
Well, we won't delve into ethnic stereotypes here. So,
I'm joking, of course.
no, um, folks, I'm sure people probably will have some questions and comments. So as I wrote in the chat, if you want to ask a question or make a comment, you can either type stack in the chat, or you can use the reaction menu at the bottom of the Zoom screen to raise your hand. I do have, I'm going to take the privilege of being the moderator to start out. And thank you very much, Giampaolo, for that presentation. The book looks very interesting. I did read some parts of it because you were kind enough to send me a PDF before it was actually released by Routledge. I think it is available now, I believe, if people are interested in it and want to buy it. It's available on all the major bookseller media. And my question has to do with what seems to be, and maybe you can discuss this, what seems to be that after the 2008 financial crisis, what had seemed to be a consensus among at least all of the advanced developed countries of a strategy of more free trade, more free movement of capital, et cetera, et cetera. There was, at least in part of this, the capitalist clusters, a reaction against this, which, of course, we saw in Britain with the referendum that pulled the Britain out of the EU, or out of the European, out of the EU. We see it in the Meloni regime in Italy, the National Front in France, and of course in the United States with both parties actually increasingly using tariffs as a tool for various hegemonic purposes, and one political party um, proposing really radical uh, uh, attacks, restriction of free trade, a real reversal from the whole concept of free trade, and and also even more use of financial hegemony of the dollar as a punitive, as a way of punishing not only peripheral countries but even advanced countries that don't play ball according to what that particular the goals of that particular faction, I guess you want to say, of the capitalist class. I don't know how else to describe it. So maybe you could say something about that. And the other thing I'd be interested in, maybe you could say something about, is the, of course, you could, as Marxists, we could say you can't have free movement of capital without free movement of labor, and the development of the neoliberal regime coincided with a great wave of migration, specifically from the peripheral countries into the core countries, if you want to call it that. This did cause a great political reaction for different reasons that has seems to have played a part in undermining the neoliberal uh, uh, ideal, at least, or the program that we were told was going to be end history in the in the
Yeah.
1990s. So maybe you could say something about how that fits into your theory, and then after that, I'll
Yeah.
call. We have one person on stack. So go ahead. Oh, you might take
Okay.
down the, unless you want to leave it up, you might take down the
Okay. Okay. I can
PowerPoint.
answer. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, sure. Just one sec. Okay. Yeah, it's better. Okay. Thank you very much for your questions. Yes, about yeah, it's very. This is, I think that this is a sort of strategy. This is my, of course, is only my opinion, because the political backlash, no, is also described by Karl Polanyi, no, in his famous book, The Great Transformation. So when you see the increasing of market economy, you have see a decrease of social stability. So this neoliberal policy can increase social instability. But I think that there is a clear strategy on that, because on one side we have this political backlash, no, against globalization, guided by who? By the labor forces mainly and generally, by the internal citizens, no, also in the developed country, but also immigration and the movement of new labor forces from the semi-peripheral states is can also weaken the labor forces within the state. And at the same time, the strategy, I think that the neoliberal strategy is to weaken the labor forces within the state. So if they are capable of doing so, they create a sort of struggle between the labor forces and migration. This is the aim of the capitalistic elites. Because if the poorest are waste time to fight each other, they don't see the real problem. The real problem is in the top, no, of our system. This also in the United States is the same thing, but also in Italy. In Italy, no, they in the media, no, you can see migration, and many politicians say, okay, migration, pay attention because migration can um, increase social instability, and at the same time they can get your job. But it's not true. Of course, it's not true. This is just a fight, no, between the poorest. And but at the same time, we can see this kind of strategy, because if you vote for conservative parties like Meloni in Italy is very far right party, no? Okay. But at the same time, before Meloni, we have a left, many left parties that got the power. The political economy is the same. No discussion about that. The political economy is just to follow the neoliberal political economy. So to reform the economy according to the neoliberal strategy rules. And this is a really a big problem for state legitimation, no, for the citizen and so on. So uh, at the same time, we have to remember that the European and also the United States, we are generally the Western world are no longer manufacturing powers as we were 40 years ago. So in that system, they not did workers or too much workers, no, within the state. That's why they can pursue freely this kind of policy, because everyone and everything now is controlled by capital. So they can move in and move out freely, and they don't care about the workers and the labor forces and so on. So in that way, I think that they want to pursue a strategy of free movement of capital just for them and free movement of labors, but just for their benefits, not for the labor forces. And we have just to keep in mind that we have a globalization system shaped by rules that can get capital an advantage, no, over everything else. You can imagine a globalization process that follow the rules of minimum wages for everything. Now, is unimaginable because it's impossible, to pursue these kinds of policy because it's not in the mind of these capitalistic elites. No, so I think that is very complicated. No, and I don't have an answer because it's very tragic, no? That's the situation. And also nowadays we can see that also the international capitalistic elites now um, have some problems in capital accumulation because with the reduction of purchasing power of the workers within the developed countries, this is a problem. That's why we have an increase in military spending. So also this is a way of increasing, the capital accumulation in a system that really can increase, capital accumulation in the years to come. But of course, it can increase the possibility of a general war. That is under our eyes, of course. I don't know if I answered to all your questions, David.
Well, I didn't expect you to give a definitive answer. It's a very, yes, I thought it was pretty, but thank you. That was quite a succinct discussion of the issue and putting it into the context of your thesis. Carol Ann Hudson had said she wanted to ask a question, but then she left the room, so I don't know what that was
Okay.
about. Something personal, I guess. Does anyone else have anything they want uh, to ask about the uh, the thesis?
Also, please be patient with my English. I don't use too much English in
Oh no,
spoken
you're
English
very
in Italy, of course. So
no,
I'm teaching in Italian, so
you're very well. Ariana, go ahead. Make sure you unmute yourself, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sorry. I think there is really bad connection, so maybe I'll switch to a different device. It was just to say that I had a question, but I see I have no connection, so I will be back. I do have a question, though.
You can write it in the chat, maybe?
Yeah, great, thanks.
Okay. Uh,
and
I think she's.
yeah,
Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, David.
Anybody else? Naboisha, you usually have something to say.
Yeah, I forgot. Just one sec. I forgot to answer to your, to your point
Oh,
about
okay.
the dollar. Yes, of course. This is also strategy. This is also strategy because now you don't. We don't have gold anymore, so that the Fed can print. Fed is free, no, to print how many dollars it wants. So this also a strategy, no, of controlling the exchange rates worldwide, and also to control public debts nominated in dollars.
Okay. Thank you. Naboisha, go ahead.
Thank you. I wasn't there from the beginning, so I would be very grateful if you could share your illustrations with us, if you could.
Sure,
And
sure.
yeah, it would be great, really. Just a short comment on the issue of freedom and liberalism, to say. Um, you know better than me. I'm trying to find the author, famous female author that researched about the origin of the term, for example, free enterprise. It simply it simply changed the place of private enterprise. Yes, all of a sudden freedom was connected to the notion of enterprise. And this relation is very important. I think that whichever elites we address, there is something in the background, at least for their ideological position, that they really, in the end, somehow believe that they are protectors of freedom and whatever, like human rights and all that. And I think that basic contradiction today is that without that belief, they wouldn't go into all these different types of interventions worldwide, which are predominantly economically inspired and driven. But then again, behind all that, there is this agenda of freedom, and which is freedom of enterprise, which is freedom of their enterprise. But it is
Sure.
very interesting because I don't know, this missionary zeal is somehow became material force, and I don't know how, for example, at the periphery, the goal of peripheral revolutionaries, not necessarily communist, is liberalization. In the most recent debates here in former Yugoslavia, more and more of us now, when we have some historical perspective, and when we got somehow released from these traumas of wars and everything, we think that in fact Yugoslavian communists were successful, historically speaking. They really brought society to some level of liberalization. Now, did the societies choose to go into capitalist way, or were talked into that? We can discuss. So it's a very complex thing, and the issue of freedom and liberalism, like not liberalist understanding of liberalism in economy as primary, but it's very important dialectics, and I think that it keeps all these crises fueled with one unarticulated passion and energy, which is in the end, no matter how justified it is on its source, ideological or historical, it's very, very explosive, very dangerous to say, because if you go against China and you know that it is only because you cannot impose anymore reforms to their economy. I mean, still China is still semi-peripheral economy, still, but with this unexpected development that it became technologically equal to the capitalist core. This is what is unexpected, and this is, I think, the major drive of all contemporary crises and wars, and this unexpected continent of equal technological superiority and capacity. But still, it is still semi-peripheral country. But it is not the goal of their economy is not the reproduction of world imperialist system. This is why Marko Kržan, theoretician from Slovenia, do not consider China imperialist. Not because it doesn't have imperialist methodologies itself or even ambitions, but because its economy is not in service completely to the one system, world imperial system. It has its own continent of meaning and functioning, which is then. Anyway, just to repeat, if you have for majority of Western elites, whether from the core or from the semi-periphery or even periphery, the threat of something that is illiberal, even if it can offer more freedom, for example, to working classes in some understanding, it's unsolvable problem due to cultural hegemony of the West, and I really don't see how the things will be solved in that matter, because somehow this system of human rights is not perfect at all, but it is the only one that we have. Anyway, just to put it on the table.
Yeah, I share with you your last point. Yeah, we have most. I mean, it's very difficult to find out how to gather and also, I mean, to develop a hegemonic political idea that can change things. I agree with you. This problem. Just to say that in Italy we are very orphan about the end of the Communist Party in Italy after the 90s. I mean, at the end of the 80s, no, because I mean they can. I mean, for example, in Italy they create also a alternative political economy in the system, and also in terms of culture, in terms of ideas. And so after that, I mean, also we destroy new political ideas, and we just refer to liberalism at all. So left and right, the only differences is about the human rights. That's it. Political economy is not discussed anymore. So in the left parties and in the right party, the political economy is the same: austerity, liberalism, liberalization, privatization, reduction of labor rights, and so on. But I would like to go straight to the point. So the construction of liberalism, I think that, okay, liberalism, as I told, liberalism is works very, very well in the theoretical way, and it's very. I mean, if I read many liberal scholars and intellectuals that they were very, very clever, and also they developed a very, very interesting idea about the economy, about the system. But the problem is that the capitalistic forces are not liberal at all. They just exploit some part of the liberalism to increase their bargaining power within the society. So, as you said, laissez-faire is just the theory of the strongest in the system. So, of course, the profit seekers use liberalism to increase the strength within the system, but at the same time they avoid the others to put in danger, the leading rule within the society. So liberalism is another way for capitalistic exploitations of the society. As you can see now we are not talking about any more liberalism, because now we have this kind of I agree, of course, but about eco-capitalism. So what does it mean, eco-capitalism? If it is capitalism couldn't be ecological. So this is just the capitalistic forces. They want to use the new rising ideology to legitimize the ruling position within the society and their capability of controlling this new system and shaping it according to the capital accumulation interest, in the economy. So liberalism is just used. For example, in Italy, we have we had a very important intellectual. The name is Benedetto Croce. He made a distinction between political liberalism and economic liberalism. So political liberalism is not the same thing that economic liberalism. I can have political liberalism, so it means free tribunals, it means human rights, it means not very dangerous police, that police that can also defend my rights and so on. But at the same time, I can have this kind of liberal political system, but at the same time, I can criticize the economic liberalism. That it means privatization, liberalization, free trade for the richest, and so on. So we have to split up, liberalism in two parts. Political one, I agree with. The economic one, no, we have criticized that. But sometimes this is a strategy. They want to create a sort of connection, strong connection between political liberalism and economic liberalism. Just to say, if you criticize economic liberalism, it means that you are not a liberal at all. So you don't want human rights, and you don't want free tribunals, and so on. But this is misleading. It's really misleading. And we have to split up two terms. I'm political liberal, but I'm not economic liberal. So it's different. Then China is rising because China resists from reforms, from neoliberal reforms. Because we know that after the signing, I think that China entered within the WTO at the beginning of the century, 2001, 2002. I don't remember exactly, but more or less at the beginning of the century. So China resisted from this from this international and from the United States and European reformist
so-called structural reforms. So-called structural reforms.
Yes, of course, yeah. They resisted. They didn't implement this kind of structural reforms or neoliberal reforms or whatsoever. That's why we have a rising China. Because at the beginning, I read, I don't remember exactly, I read a book that explained very well this kind of I think that this is a Stieglitz's book about the reformism. I don't know, at the end of the 90s. I don't remember. I don't want to make a mistake. But however, what is important that China resisted and didn't apply this kind of reforms. That's why we have a rising China. But of course, China sometimes, they use the international economy and they give states aids and funds in order to sustain these exports and so on, and to sustain or to devaluate its currency. This is not very well, within the international system. And but at the end of the game, they resisted, and that's why we have China at this point. Because I think that United States believe that after opening up the China's doors to the international capitals and manufacturing and so on, they can shape China internally by using the strategy that I described. So China would have suffered by the twofold policies. So the diplomatic institutional pressure and then elite pressures that can shape China according to the United States rules. But it didn't happen because China resisted and China pursued the way of modernization. This is my
Okay.
opinion, of course.
I want to let Jacqueline has had her hand up for a long time. So Jacqueline, you want to unmute yourself and go ahead?
Sure, thank you. I have to say that I am so reliant upon the MEP for my intellectual life. I always hear things I never would hear regularly. This question may be a little bit off with this talk. What period does your book cover? Because I remember so many debt crises in Latin America in the 80s. And I don't know if those debt crises had like major international repercussions. I mean, I remember Mexico in the 1980s, and that brought like a lot of immigration to the United States and California. I remember that. And I'm also wondering about debt crises in Africa and how those, how much debt are those countries facing? And what is the status of Asia? Okay, I mean, do the Asian countries face as much debt as, say, Latin America? And if they don't, why? And I think I've given you enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. So at the beginning, my book, I mean, refers generally to the past, so to the beginning. In the 19th century, to the beginning of the idea of reforms within the neoliberal order. So it mainly related to the British Empire, generally speaking. But I would like, I tried to coin some methodological approach that we can use also in the present. So in my conclusion, I just, skip over many crises, of course, for problems of the book length. But we can use also this methodology to explain what happened in the 80s, and the conclusion I try also to explain what is different with the United States reformist process. But you remember correctly in the 80s with the crisis of Mexico and many Latin American and African states, we have this kind of shift between the reforms related within the manufacturing sector generally, and then to the financialization of the economy. So Mexico and Argentina and many other states, for example, the Asian states, at the end of the 90s, suffer reforms in the field of the financial sector. We have to remember, of course, that this kind of financial crisis, especially in the 80s, were related to the increase of exchange rate by the Fed at the end of the 70s in 1979. So we have the end of Bretton Woods in the 1971, the 15th of August, 1971. Then we have the oil crisis, 1973. Then we have the Kingston Conference in 1976. So in the 70s, we have this kind of the end of the Bretton Woods system and the free movement of currencies worldwide. And also we have a dollar devaluation. And peripheral states started indebted themselves. But after the 1979, with the increase of the exchange rate, we have an increase also of the interest of the loans negotiated in the past. So many countries defaulted on the foreign debt for this reason, for this kind of monetary control of the system. And we have seen that after the bankruptcy, we see the request of financial reforms generally pursued by the International Monetary Fund in order to privatize, liberalize the economy. It was more or less the same in many Asian states on the end of the century. So I think that we see also, from the 1979 to to the 2008 financial crisis, the same modus operandi of the international reforms. They use the debt problems in order to increase their request of structural adjustment in those countries.
Okay. Next up is Ariana. Did we lose her again?
No, I'm fine.
Oh, there you are. Yes. Okay. You want to speak?
Yes, thanks. Yes.
Oh, we can see you now too. Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. Thanks so much for this great presentation and the book, which I haven't read, but I'm really looking forward to. And so my question is, I just looked at the table of contents, and from your talk, it's so interesting. And so my question is, whether you have looked at welfare state nationalism and capitalist reforms within that context, and if not, how your methodology would make sense of reforms that even at the level of social policy actually, on the face of it, work to make concessions for the poorer classes. And so welfare state nationalism, if you've looked at it, or how we can apply your methodology to make sense of it. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Arianna, for your question. I think that in this case, I didn't study deeply nationalism in relation to this kind of reforms, but I think that nationalism is a consequence. A really smooth consequence of this kind of reforms. I remember that I read two very interesting books. One written by Robert Allen. I read in Italian, so I'm just guessing the translation. So, How to Make a Nazi. And the other one is written by Eric Fromm, so Escaping from Liberty. So both of these books analyze how the German petite bourgeoisie and the workers voted extensively for the Nazis. No, and the explanation is just, the increase, the increasing of inequalities in the economy, and the fear by the petite bourgeoisie, mainly by the petite bourgeoisie, of losing their purchasing power. So they were scared of losing something, and that's why they voted for the right wing parties, because you are afraid of losing, and then you vote for someone that promise you something that is impossible to realize. So they think that this is a very connected consequence, but sometimes it's also very difficult to understand how they don't understand that. But I think also that nationalism is related also to the perception of the crisis of the system. So I'm losing something. I don't want to see that. I would like to save myself by believing in something new, in something that I cannot buy, but it can exist. So nationalism can exist, and also you are able, you can't buy it. So also, if you can't afford it, this is still in place, nationalism. So I see in that way. I don't know. If you agree or not. I'm just guessing, of course. I'm just thinking, with you about this issue. But I think that nationalism works in that way, or could work in that way. And then, I mean, okay, about the social policy, this is a consequence, of course. They reduce the social, for example, the welfare system. I reduce the welfare system, and I feel myself, I feel my purchasing, the reduction of my purchasing power. So I want to save what I have. And also I want to exclude the immigrants from the welfare system. And also identify myself with nationalism. So I'm a citizen, I have this. It's very few, but I want to keep this. And you have to stay outside. And I identified myself with the nation, because capitalism destroyed the social networks in the society. And so also you need something to believe. If you don't have a society anymore, your purchasing power anymore, you have to believe in something new. And nationalism can sweep well, no, to this void. I don't know, Arianna, if I answered.
Yes, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Navoja, go ahead.
Okay, maybe few just comments. First of all, the author that I refer to is Naomi Oreskes. There is her book in a beautiful history of connecting liberty with capitalist enterprise. Okay, as for the capacity of China to resist, I think that we used to skip over the main thing. There was communist revolution in China. Communist revolution removed entire layer of comprador bourgeoisie that was in fact in service of the foreign capital, and that was controlling society, in fact. So, and then again, through cultural revolution, unfortunately through so much violence, even more deep radical social reform, in fact, paved the way for capitalist reforms, pro-capitalist reforms under Deng Xiaoping, that didn't endanger the basic, they call it socialist, we can call it social democratic, direction of development of China. So you don't have the basic tool of imposing your interest, which is comprador bourgeoisie, so-called, or this semi-peripheral elite, that you refer to. The same thing was in Russia, but in Russia the pre-revolutionary elites survived, at least through hegemonic culture, which reproduced the Russian imperial thought and reasoning, etc. And then the first opportunity, they took over, but then they were defeated later in the beginning of 2000s. So without communist revolution, you cannot, in fact, you cannot release your economy from the control of capitalist center. You simply cannot. And this is why Lenin put as the primary goal of October Revolution, getting rid of imperialist yoke, including Russian imperialist yoke at the time. So getting rid of it and providing a chance for economy to develop without this external commanding center. In fact, it's not influence, it's just commanding post. You will produce this, you will produce that, and that's it. Like in Croatia today, no shipbuilding anymore. No shipbuilding faculties are getting closed. The instruction from European Union is you will be touristic country and touristic economy, and that's it.
Sure.
So
sure.
There's no development. There's Andre Gunder's Frank defined it fantastically. This is development of underdevelopment.
Yeah.
You are more and more underdeveloped, and that's it. And that brings to dissatisfaction, that brings to frustration, and then nationalism is perfect because this is bourgeois ideology, which lobbies for cross-class solidarity, doesn't depend, this is our capitalist that exploits me, he's of the same nation, we are on the same side, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And plus to that, Croatian theoretician, in fact, party theoretician, but really the most leftist one at the time, Stipe Šuvar, defined like the first characteristic of nationalism. It is non-transparent. In fact, you don't know what nationalist cause is. You don't know. You can inscribe anything you want, and you can be deprived for nationalist cause. You can be deprived of your own basic interest, like of working class, because there is higher interest of nation, etc. Anyway, a few remarks, but when it's about China, due to the historical break with the imperialist core for a few decades, they were capable, and also they were capable of controlling factors of production. At least one, labor. No one could impose control of a labor force in China, after communist revolution. So you have one factor of production that you control, and then you bring technology and you develop technology, it's over. You are not colony anymore.
Jacqueline, you wanted to say something again?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just from a hearing, no, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Nabush. Okay. I was very interested in what you said about the loss of shipbuilding and the development of a tourist economy, because that ties into Fred Murphy's class on AI and Luddism, because this has just been my observation, is that with industrial work, with the development of skills, people feel a greater sense of solidarity and self-respect and communal work, whereas a tourist economy, which you're describing as financialization, creates feelings of, well, no one wants to be a servant, okay? And so a tourist economy is based upon people being servants. So I think one of the conclusions of this financialization of economies is the de-skilling of individuals, the loss of satisfaction in work, and the loss of community, productive community. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there, but this has been a very interesting discussion. Thank you.
Okay. We're getting towards the end of our time here. Anyone else? Fred? Karen? Anything you want to say? I'm gonna jump in one more time with a sort of big, another big. I don't know. It's not a question. It's sort of a question. What do you think about this, Giampaolo, or anyone else? Because I mean, it seems to me that yes, what's made possible a lot of we could call them the pathologies, political pathologies of our time, is what you described, Giampaolo, the kind of disintegration of the civil society, at least the civil society of the modern working class. This happened because of the disintegration of industrial economies. So in a way, it wasn't that the political parties, of the working class, whether they were the CPs or the Social Democrats, they failed because their constituency kind of disappeared. I mean, the people didn't disappear, but what had held them together as a community disappeared, and it doesn't seem like there's any likelihood of that coming back. So I'm wondering what maybe your thoughts are about the way forward politically for people who want to see beyond the neoliberal capitalist regime.
Yes,
there's a small question for you.
Yeah. So thank you also. I mean, I agree with the colleague about the end of it. I mean, the compradora, the elite compradora in China. But I mean, at the beginning of the century, China wasn't anymore a communist communist state. So, but of course, I agree with you about the end of the elite. No, they destroy the elites. Probably this is the reason why they resisted. Also, yeah, the problem. Just to, I mean, for conclusion, I think that now we need someone that is capable of understanding the way of exploitation in our society. Because in the 19th century, we have, of course, Karl Marx and many other scholars that revealed the exploitation in the industrial system. Now, in our mind, is very clear. I'm teaching history of capitalism to my students, and it's very clear the way of exploitation in industrial society. The problem is that nowadays we don't have a theory capable of explaining very simply the way of exploitation. And at the same time, as you said, we don't have, I mean, any more workers. We have really small businessmen. They are the individual businessmen. So if also I want to deliver some food to someone, I'm a sort of businessman. So I'm alone in the system. So this is a very real problem. I think that the only way is just to think that we have to share a different quality of life. So I think also this is a sort of resistance now. I think that is not clear because we see in different way. For example, in Italy, many young people quit their jobs. So this is a way to resist to the system. Not in the way that we are accustomed to. We don't have strikes. We don't have political protests and so on, but we have protests against the system, against the exploitation that this system generated. So I think that there is a way to think a different kind of life. So don't living anymore in the city center. For example, now it's very impossible to live in Rome or in Naples or in Bologna or Florence because the houses is so expensive to buy. So many people go, I mean, in the countryside, settled in the countryside. And just they think that I don't want to work anymore in that way with this pressure because capital exploit our lives entirely, not only during our working times, but also during our rest time when you use our phone and so on. So many young people prefer to go outside this system. So there's a sort of resistance against this system of capital accumulation. I think that is very difficult, I mean, to write down and also to gather this kind of feeling, no? But I think that there is something. So against this kind of thing, this kind of working life, to rethink and to rethink about our quality of life, and at the same time the quality of the environment that we live in. So this are many elements that we can put together, and we have to create a theory. But I think that we need a very great scholars capable of putting down some theory of exploitation in our system and the way to get out of this system. Marx said, you work too much. You work half time for yourself and the other half time for the owners. This is why we see the exploitation in the system. Now it's clear to us probably, but we need a theory capable of, I mean, gather the workers and many workers in many places, and I mean also in many in many culture is not easy, but I think that now I see a shift. Many of my students they don't want to study because I'm teaching in the department of philosophy and history and philosophy. Many of my students say that I want to study philosophy, but then I would like to do whatever I can find, but I would like to prefer the quality of life. I don't want to stay anymore in Rome. If I find a job, okay, but I mean it's not my priority. The priority is my quality of life. I know this system destroy myself, so I study just to myself, not to find a job. This is change. I think that something is changing now in the mentality. We have to see what's going on in the future, and if the capitalistic states uh, want that a different system can rise, or just they want to put us in a war, or to I mean to cause a war just to settle and just to I mean discipline, create a new discipline in the society. This is a big risk nowadays.
Okay.